Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining this session. My name is Anastasia Podrabinek. I'm a product manager for AI platform at Wix.com, and today I want to share the experience and the journey we had with AI platformization. Last year at this conference, I was sharing our first steps in understanding what does it mean to build AI features for enterprise, and now a year after, I'm ready to share some new perspectives and learnings. I hope you'll find it insightful, and let's get started. We'll start with a recap of what is the challenge of bringing AI in enterprise. I believe many things I'll say will be relevant not only for LLMs integration, but for any major innovation in big companies. And then you'll follow me with our journey of first enabling LLM features development and reaching very high adoption rate and dev velocity, and only then facing the quality and prompt evaluation challenge. I'll show why and how our vision of what is a good platform changed to shift focus from early adoption to highest quality.
I think it hit everyone almost 2 years ago that the key to success is the ability to leverage the power of LLMs and onboard AI features as soon as possible, almost in all areas of business. We saw quite a lot of pretty useless LLM features, right? But the point stays to stay competitive as a company, you need to be fast. And that's great. In every tech company, in every dev team, if it's any good, there are people that are very innovation oriented and are willing to push the effort of bringing new features and capabilities. So everyone wants to work with LLMs, but we can already see that it can become really challenging in bigger companies. Let's see why. Let's say we want to onboard a simple chatbot that helps users with wording in their content they create. No RAG, no fine tuning. It doesn't do any financial operations, doesn't take any important decisions. Still, we immediately start facing barriers, questions that either require a lot of research or put in dependency on other teams, especially in big companies. First, are we even allowed to build this? Which data we can or cannot send to LLMs from the legal standpoint and from security one? What do we do if the model generates something harmful? Who will be responsible for it? Who will pay the potential and financial risks? And the same can be raised for security of the data, making sure it's still protected even when we include the third party LLM vendor to the mix. In many cases, I also see that cost assessment is a pain. It's hard to predict how much will it cost if we don't know how to plan adoption rates for such features. And if we have a few teams developing different LLM-based features, cost planning becomes even more complex than that. The technicalities of integration might bring more issues. Which models should we use? What about the uptime? Can our vendor afford our throughput? It's easy to say that we can pick the best model with experimentation, but what will happen in practice? In order to compare, let's say, few models for the same feature, we'll take Llama, GPT, and Claude. I'm not talking about versions even. For the same task, one must go into the whole flow of procurement to integration just to check which of the models fits their needs the best. That's an unreasonable overhead. So most teams will just go with the default or most accessible option and not necessarily with the best one. Quality is also tricky. As a big company, we might have a lot of different guidelines and standards for almost everything. But this is not yet covered. What's a good AI product and what is a good user experience for such a product? How to make sure we're doing the right thing for our users and for ourselves? This all is not yet defined good enough. And lastly, what does it even mean to maintain such a feature? To monitor its success, to debug issues, to improve and develop new capabilities? Most of these things can't fully block you, but they critically raise the complexity of even initiating research on a new LLM feature. It becomes even more complex if we look closer at the process in a specific dev team that is approaching such a feature. To be successful, they need to change a lot in their comfortable R&D cycle. Besides normal flow of design, development, testing, release, now there is a new, much less predictable cycle of prompt engineering and evaluation. Now, for example, the definition of good enough for production is now shifted. You now cannot expect that all your tests will be always 100% green. Now the criteria of good enough are very vague and highly subjective, even if you know what they are, and this is also not always the case. Experienced teams usually become very good in estimating new features for a product they work on. Guess what about LLM based stuff? It really messes up the timeline. From the seeming simplicity of building a prompt that works in a few simple scenarios to the real stress of going rounds and rounds trying to fix inconsistent and weird behaviors. This all is complicated by not having a clear technology stack and established methodology. Different teams choose to handle it differently, but each team needs to find their own answer. And as a highly subjective opinion, I'll say that the most tech heavy teams are usually most focused on delivery, and they will easier ignore some steps in prompt evaluation. Teams that are more content creation focused will be more likely stuck in evaluation perfectionism cycle. As everywhere, balance wins. You need to have someone who will embrace the imperfection and also someone who will dig as deep as they can, catching the edge cases. Of course, the best part of this is the scale. Once there are more than 5 teams or 10 teams struggling with all the external and internal obstacles, the AI adoption becomes a company scale challenge. The next logical step here is to think of solutions that could solve at least some of the issues in a centralized and company wide way. Before deciding on specific features and technical capabilities of such theoretical solution, it's worth taking a step back and thinking what is the general experience that we want to give in order to empower and encourage developers to onboard AI and generally simplify the process. If you're contemplating building or using a ready-made platform for AI, I encourage you to start with the goals. What are you trying to solve? What is the key to enabling AI development in your case? Might be that the roadblocks and challenges are not exactly the same as I will describe right now. For us, it was important to reduce the barrier, to come up with an easy way to solve non technical questions like legal, security, or financial assessment. On the other hand, we wanted all the repeated technicalities to be solved. No need for each team to integrate with LLM vendors from scratch. No need to build their own monitoring and fallback management and other things. Each team should focus on what they know best, their product that can get to next level with LLMs. I must note that until now we're not touching prompt engineering that much. At this stage we had to go with the assumption that each team will do prompt engineering on their own, and the good tools will help them to do it right. To manage all legal, security, and cost related risks, all common guardrails can and should be centralized. We have to make sure that the way teams integrate with LLMs is compliant with all the policies we have, and if something changes, we'll have an easy way to handle it from one place. Once this all is in place, it should be theoretically easy to reduce load on each team and help them to kick off AI initiatives. All this leads to the idea of platformization, building a whole layer of infrastructure to enable AI features development. I want to take a few moments to talk about the decision making process we had before starting this journey. To boil down the goal, we just want to remove the barriers that we see and open the fast lane to development. If we were starting it now, there would be an additional dilemma between building our own solution or choosing one of those available at the market. 1.5 years ago, the LLM oriented offering wasn't great, and the solutions that just started to evolve didn't meet our basic needs. So the decision of building an in house solution was an easy one. If I return now to the initial maps of the roadblocks that we saw, we'll see that most of these blocks theoretically should be removed to clear the way for the development. In case all the guardrails and integration technicalities are handled, the teams just need to figure out their prompt engineering and evaluation. And if the platform has good tools for prompt building and management, then the prompt engineering also should become a much easier task. What does it all mean in practice? The platform will consist of a set of components that will cover each part of the LLM feature development flow. To simplify the flow, it will consist of the kickoff, where the product is being defined and started, then the prompt engineering, integration, and production monitoring and maintenance. On the first step, we need to take care of all the operations. Once the team creates a new project in the platform, it automatically goes to the funnel of all required reviews to identify potential risk, to track and understand costs, take care of other non-development issues. This step is super crucial on the company level. Not only it frees the team from figuring out the right process, but also helps to organize information on AI features and make sure that everyone is aligned on a strategy. If you're building something similar, think about the information on LLM projects within your company that you want to organize and track across the company wide. Now, the fun part, prompt engineering. As I said before, the initial assumption was that the prompt engineering will be fully on dev teams. Still, having an infrastructure to manage prompt versions and test them on some data samples was essential. Another important decision was to open the system to non developers and build a user friendly UI for everything in the platform. We've noticed that in many tasks related to prompt engineering, writers and product managers took the lead and were very successful. That was one of the best moves we did. Now developers could move on to integration while someone else is working on building the perfect prompt. Another thing to think of here, who is doing prompt engineering in your teams and what is their skill set? In the solutions I see now in the market, I often note that from the standpoint of user experience, the ideal prompt engineer is supposed to be something between a data analyst and a developer. And I must say, this is an amazing thing to be, but also it's very rare, and not every team has a luxury to have a person like this. And integration was another time saver. As you know, different LLM providers have slightly different APIs and set of features. Our goal here was to create a common denominator, build a layer of APIs that unify the experience for everyone, and the platformization team was going to take the load of making sure to properly manage connection to each provider. That also included planning for growth, to be able to easily onboard more LLM models fast. Of course, every extra convenience that we can give counts. Gradually, we included more and more features to simplify integration and load dev teams. As the features became more complex, we added solutions for rack pipelines, fine-tuned models, and other things. Similar logic was applied for production monitoring. We had to make sure that the basics are covered out of the box. Later, I will focus on what was missing here. But it's important to see now that technically it's a good and well rounded toolset that actually checks all the boxes according to the goals we've envisioned before. So, did it work? Yes. First of all, that was an amazing start. The platform approach boosted AI features development even more than we could expect. Once there was a clear way to initiate such a project, the new ideas started appearing one after another. One learning here is that in any case of uncertainty, you'll have people that run forward with their ideas no matter what. And they will be the ones forming your vision of what's going on in the company. But there is also another layer of people that have ideas, they have vision and skills, but also they struggle to push the initiatives if they are not sure what's the right way to do it. By giving clear workflows, you unlock a whole world of projects that wouldn't happen otherwise. Development phase really improved. Now anyone could start with just drafting a few prompts, showing how they work, and then the dev team just had to connect the dots. All the integration heavy lifting was done in the platform. Maintenance, of course, didn't disappear, but it became much more predictable and manageable. Built-in monitoring, alerting, fallbacks gave peace of mind for teams. Not only they don't have to monitor failures and outages, they don't have to fix them either if it's not on their side. It was a win for management as well. While the teams preserved their autonomous ability to initiate AI projects, the management gained position to oversee and track LLM features all across the company. Like this, in a very short time, we were in a new reality where all the teams could push the AI adoption and run really fast. But as it always happens, overcoming some obstacles leads to discovering the new ones. The assumption that the good tools will boost their velocity was the correct one, but at the same time, the easier it was to implement an LLM based feature, the less thought was put into planning. Lowering the threshold for prompt engineering created an illusion that it's a simple thing that doesn't require much testing or architecture planning. When anyone can create a somewhat working POC with no code, a lot of people get an impression that there is no skill or knowledge needed for working with LLMs. Like with any task, you need to face some difficulty in order to understand that you need to learn something or change the way you do things. The infrastructure created a blind spot for this. Everything was too smooth to bring attention to prompt engineering and evaluation. Additionally, while being able to see all the AI features centralized, we still had to investigate what actually happens during the dev process and why some things that we see as best practices get ignored so often. Delving into the project's data and talking to teams was really insightful. On the one hand, it confirmed the value of maximum flexibility. Often, when some solution looks a bit strange, there is an actual practical reason for it. And it was important, no matter what we do next, to preserve this, to allow feature owners to do their own decisions, and sometimes might contradict common practices that we envision. But there was another layer of reasons that I want to cover here. First of all, when everyone is excited about AI, they want to run fast. The features seem to bring great value for users. They seem easy to implement, and this wins over any additional considerations. I must say, it's not always bad. In many cases, testing features on 1% of the audience in production will give more value than endless pre-production evaluation. Still, this must be a well-informed decision and a consciously chosen strategy. Also, when running fast, every bad luck with prompt engineering leads to frustration. You wrote a prompt, let's say for GPT-4o Mini. You test it, you do something a few times, it doesn't work, you conclude that the model is bad. You need a new one, a better one, you need a bigger context window, whatever else. Most of these cases are actually solved by changing the prompt or splitting it, working with settings, etc. But when we have teams that are most tech oriented, they tend to look for technical solutions and often get lost in chasing the best and the newest models. And also, this often helps, but it makes solutions slower, heavier, more expensive, and so on. It could be done in a much more effective way. Connected to it, the next point is that prompt engineering is hard. It's counterintuitive, but instructing a machine in a natural language is not simpler than with any programming language. On the opposite, it is so flexible that you have a million more ways to do the wrong thing. The illusion of simplicity plays a joke on us here. Not only it requires knowledge and experience, it also takes time and a few failures to even understand that you are not great in prompt engineering and you need to go and learn a few things. And it would be much easier if the teams knew who needs to have the time and the skills to build and evaluate a prompt, uh, who actually has the authority to say, yeah, now it's good. Even though now we can see that some companies are starting to hire prompt engineers, we can't reasonably expect that in the near future every team will have a dedicated person for this. Most teams will have to figure out how to break down this role and who needs to learn all the extra skills to fill this need. This part is really expected, but I believe it's important and worth talking about it. Managing such a platform is a lot. Any platform for enterprise is always a lot of development and a lot of maintenance and support. But the AI world is also extra dynamic, so there is a constant ongoing track of keeping up with new models and features. To stay with the state of art, you need to be extremely flexible and fast, and the research should often run beyond things that are already implemented in other products. It's an exciting journey, but it's extremely demanding too. We need to understand what will be next, how we can keep all the great things about the platform, but push more towards quality and also not spread too thin, trying to provide everything at once. As until now we were focusing on enabling things and empowering developers, now we need to shift this vision to something more focused and try to solve the issues we saw. The ideal vision would be something like quality by design. We had to find some secret sauce to convert a good toolset to a toolset for good results. If we quickly revisit the initial goal, we'll see that we generally wanted to remove the extra steps, give tools for everything, and reduce risks. Now it's time to bring each of the goals to the new level. I'll cover it in more detail in the next slide, but the plan here is to add guidance to the whole process and not just make it shorter. Prompt engineering tools should come with the right way of using them, whether it comes with some extra assistance in UI or with some means of educations, whatever we can build. Now we know more and we can also scope from defining guardrails for risk areas to a bit wider scope of decisions that can be taken cross company. So, we already have the easy way of working on LLM projects, and now we need to also make it the right way. Now we need to see what are the missing pieces. For me, it was important to make sure it's not only technical solutions, but also efforts that will generally affect the way people look at prompt engineering and the decision making process they will go through. Building user guidance is the most fundamental step here, as it will take all the knowledge accumulated combined with data scientists' expertise and vision. There should be best practices for every step of defining an AI based product. How to understand even that something should be solved with AI? It's not such an obvious question. What is the AI infrastructure? What are the components of the flow? Maybe it's RAG, chain of prompts, other techniques. How to choose the model? How to start with prompt engineering? What should be tested and on how much data? And this is not a full list of questions, and I want to note here that even though the things that I mentioned here seem very general, they can be different for your company or product. All this knowledge can be passed through educational activities. There is no goal to make a prompt engineer out of everyone, but there is a certain level of awareness that should be achieved more or less company wide.
Many of the best practices will convert to better guided flows in the platform. While the platform gives a lot of capabilities, it should also hint on the next logical step, recommend actions and techniques, and do it in the smartest way possible. It's potentially a whole universe of semi automated prompt engineering and evaluation flow. But for now, we focus on giving a good starting point and guiding to next step. And returning to the decision making, it's worth trying to narrow down the decision the team has to make. If a year ago it seemed like a great idea to serve as many models as possible, now it looks more reasonable, taking all the knowledge into account, to scale down a bit and recommend a smaller but well curated list of LLM models. The same can be applied to other things. Scope and dial will improve and simplify decisions and also decrease the load on the platform team. Let's look at what it actually means in practice. For this, I'll return to the diagram of the platform that we've already seen. We'll have to add two new layers. First will be in-platform guidance, and the second will be education. We'll see now how it can help us to fill the gaps and cover things that are not easily converted to the tools. In the platform, the system of quick start prompt templates and pre-built evals will help users to put their process in order and avoid some basic issues. But the education level is what actually makes it work. It creates the right mindset and sets the common ground for teams to even discuss building LLM features. It covers also the platform gaps. We might not have a one click solution for every single problem, but knowing the world of prompt engineering helps teams to come up with their techniques that are based on common approaches. But I also should be honest here. Education is hard. There is no single lecture or workshop that will do the trick. It's a whole infrastructure of knowledge bases, courses, lectures, etc., that should be constantly maintained and improved. I've conducted quite a few hands on workshops for different groups, and I never had a chance to bring exactly the same content to two events. It always requires readjustments for the audience, their needs and skill set, current state of the art and prompt engineering, current platform capabilities, and so on. But it was also 200% worth it. It changes the way people look at prompt engineering tasks and on LLM feature planning in general. So, did it work? It would be a lie to say that we've solved everything. But there is an obvious positive trend. We see that the teams stick to workflows we suggest. They put more effort into planning and evaluation cycle. And also, that was a concern to be honest, it's now already clear that this didn't slow down the development. Bringing in all the education effort actually improved the onboarding of new teams to start working with LLMs. And as a interesting bonus that wasn't expected, we also started to see that non-technical people started to build internal productivity tools. Learning about prompt engineering actually empowered them to use AI for their day-to-day work and become just much more effective and help their teammates. Still, it's also just the beginning, and each single new feature opens a whole world of possibilities and different improvements both in production and education. I guess in a year from now, I'll have a whole new set of learnings from this path that we are taking right now. And before we wrap it up, let's talk about the bottom line here. I think what I want you to take out of it is that AI adoption is complex. And in bigger companies, it can be especially challenges due to many reasons. While it's great to boost the development with some versatile platformized tool set, whether it's something in-house or something you find externally, the quality will come from distilled best practices that you provide and the decisions that you make. And you will need to package them as some sort of education, some sort of guidance, some sort of guardrails that you build within your company. And this is the expertise that is really difficult to take from outside because in many ways it will rely on the specifics of your product and your features and your quality standards and so on. And the more data you analyze while adding LLM features to the product, the easier it actually becomes to centralize these best practices in decision and then solidify your AI strategy with it. So you will see that you will always have in your company some AI enthusiasts that will lead the way, that you will need to educate everyone and bring everyone to this new higher level of LLM understanding so they can kick off their amazing AI product and really take your company to the next level. That's it for this lecture. Feel free to reach out and enjoy all the other lectures at this exciting conference.